What do you do if you're an average Joe? What should a novice or amateur or beginner do for endurance training for health? That's what we're going to cover today, and we're going to do so by first diving into a study that has been making the rounds recently by Ben Levine. And what it was is a 2-year training intervention study that found when they took essentially 50-year-olds that if they went through this program, they reduced the age of their heart by 20 years is the catchy headline. You can look it up. You can read the study. Good stuff. What's often taken from this study, though, is that we should do the interval workout that they chose to do. 4 by 4 minutes. The Norwegian intervals, as they're called in social media land for some unknown reason. But that's not the takeaway. Here's what actually went on in the study and how it applies to everybody else. First, they spent the first couple months doing nothing but easy exercise, easy running, going on and building up to 30-minute easy runs in a low heart rate. Okay? They didn't use your traditional 5-zone model, but what we can say is it was an easy, moderate-ish pace. And that's what they were doing for their endurance training for months before they added anything. And then when they did add something, we'll call it a kind of high-end aerobic or tempo type session. Where we're pressing the aerobic system a little bit was the first thing, and they added that into the mix. And then only after about 3 months or so of training did they start to add intervals. And that's when the 4 by 4 minutes at 95% max heart rate came into play. But even then, guess what? They weren't just doing these intervals. They built up to a place where they were doing one long run of at least 60 minutes and one shorter run of 30 minutes easy, both of them easy. And then 2 days a week of this 4 by 4 minute interval. And the point is, they built up to a balanced aerobic endurance training program. Is it exactly the program I would use? No, as we're going to get to next, but they built a base and foundation so that they could train, and then had a training system with something long, something medium that were easy, and some higher intensity, but like aerobic intensity efforts. No Tabata sprints, nothing else. And they maintained this until 10 months of training. And then for the last year and change of their training, they essentially did all easy with 1 day a week of this interval. And what happened? Well, they increased their VO2 max. They changed all this stuff in the heart, made them 20 years younger in terms of their heart, and all good stuff. But what often comes out of this is we need to do the 4 by 4 minutes. This will change your heart. This will make you younger. No. It's developing a proper endurance training program. Now let's dig into what that looks like if we're starting from the beginning. I think Levine's group did it right. If we look at what a novice or beginner needs to do, is they have to establish a fitness base or foundation. We've known this for competitive athletes since Arthur Lydiard, and he said, hey, go run 100 miles a week with a long run, build the foundation for months. That will make your interval or intense work pay off later. It does. It's true. But we've known this even longer ago for, yes, competitive athletes, but athletes who were barely training. Because Paavo Nurmi in the 1920s, guess what? He built a base and foundation by lots of long walks and then adding some endurance runs in there. But lots of walks was the goal. And in fact, some runners ran some relatively fast marathons off of almost all long walks, which is surprising. But the point is, we've known for a really long time that easy builds the foundation. And the reason for it is this, is if we don't and we just jump into the intensity, we essentially, I hate zones, but we essentially have no zones. If we were to measure lactate or even heart rate, it's not like this nice little increase or curve that we see. It's literally like, okay, you start from walking into some sort of jog and it's just like straight up linear. I'm exaggerating, but you get the point. There is no separation. Why? Our aerobic system is so untrained that essentially it goes into freak out mode and says like, we got to jump up, cover everything we got, like throw everything against the wall, just get through this thing. This sucks. What is this person doing? We have to build the foundation to have the capacity aerobically to handle anything intense. Because if we don't, we just end up trying to survive the workout. And when we survive, sure, we might get a little bit better over time because everything is a new stimulus. We're literally a clean slate. So we will adapt to anything, literally anything, if we're a novice, okay? But we'll quickly plateau or burn out or get injured or have nowhere else to go because we've drilled the intensity so much that it's just, we can't expand our ability or capacity. So we have to build a foundation. Hopefully I've sold you on this. What does that look like? Lots of easy. For novice, easy might mean walking. It might then just mean walk jogging. And I know that gets a lot of bad flack, but if that's the foundation, that's the foundation. You need to do stuff where you can have full conversations. And I get early on that will be walking, but mostly full conversations. And then we want to extend out in terms of lengthening the volume or lengthening the amount of time we're jogging compared to walking when we're looking at this kind of walk-jog delineation. The way to think of it is I need to get time on my feet. How much you get up to depends on your goals. But I like to say we at least need a few months, 2-3 months of this before we can touch any sort of hard intensity. Okay? We need an aerobic foundation. If you're not doing that, trying to get a shortcut, you're wasting time. Okay? Once we get that foundation, we've built up where we can essentially run easy for 30 plus minutes, ideally 30 plus minutes, better off 45 minutes, but it depends on your goals. Okay. Once we've got that foundation where we're running, most days a week, 4 days a week, we'll say, of 30 plus minutes easy, can have a conversation, not dying afterwards. What do we do? Well, we start adding easy, fast stuff. In cross-country terms, high school coaching terms, we say strides. 100 meters, 15 seconds, just picking up the pace. Nothing crazy. I should add a caveat here. One thing that I missed here is during that 2 to 3 months easy, it's fine and actually good to supplement some of that with cross-training if you enjoy that. Biking, swimming, whatever it is, rucking, elliptical, elliptico, whatever you like to do, that will help aerobically. Okay, it doesn't help as much on preparing the muscles, tendons, etc. to prepare for the load. But if you want to bridge that gap and you have the time, supplementing with cross-training can reduce the injury risk and get your aerobic system up and ready without having to have it all in running. And the other thing I mentioned, this would take an entire episode, which I promise we'll do at some point. We've got it started to outline on strength training to prepare the body for the demands. The short answer is this, is you want to do things that are full body movements in multiple directions to get you accustomed to handling loads. So here I love some of Vern Gambetta's circuits, especially his lunge matrix where you're going in multiple directions. I love other things that, again, full body movement, squats, get-ups, farmer carries, other things that essentially allow you to prepare your body to say, hey, we're going to have to use our muscles and kind of get used to it. And then there's some specific work that I think is really important for preparing for the demands of running. Because when every step we take, we're taking multiple times our body weight into the ground in terms of force that we have to absorb. A lot of that absorption comes from down low, foot interacting with the ground, Achilles, calf complex, taking some of that up, working up the chain. A lot of runners have early lower limb problems, shin splints, Achilles tendonitis, calf problems. If you prepare for this on the front end, it saves you a lot of headaches. So things like calf raises, eccentric lowering, working on very short drop jumps where you're just landing And then landing and reacting. So reactive jumps, jump rope, things to prepare your lower limb for interacting with the ground in a controlled arena. All of those things work well. I'll leave it at that. We'll go deeper later. So let's get back into our transition. We're adding easy fast, smooth and fast stuff into it. This serves as the kind of like transition period. Once you can do a lot of easy running, you add in some easy fast stuff, then you start adding some intensity. How? I like to do it in short segments that are not that fast. So what does that mean? It means either some short progression runs, some split up tempo or threshold work, some fartleks with short reps, or alternatively some what I'd call igloo style aerobic intervals, which I did a video on recently, where we're not going that fast. We're staying aerobic, but we're saying, hey, here's an introduction to some high-end aerobic side. Because what we're trying to do is say we built this aerobic foundation. Now we're going to press that just a little bit to take it to the next level, which means the threshold, the tempos, the high-end aerobic intervals. That's where we start, 1 day a week, okay? We take one of our easy runs and we say, hey, at first I'm going to add a short pickup for a mile at the end. And then we add in some fartlek into it. And then we add whatever into it. Progressive, okay? From there, and the key here is this, is we don't want it to the well. We don't want it that hard. We want it aerobic. We're trying to gradually build that into it. From there, once we've gotten our moderate intensity, then begins our like actual program to kind of get fit. We're now fit enough to train. Now we're going to train. So what does that look like? We take that high-end aerobic stuff, and then we're going to vary our intensity. Again, I like to start with 1 day a week where we have something longer or high-end aerobic influenced, meaning those tempos, those thresholds, long repeats, split repeats at about half marathon to 10K pace, what I would say for trained runners. For untrained runners, what I would say, a pace you can sustain for about a little over an hour to, maybe 40, 35 minutes. Okay. In that area, what zone it is, don't care. But having something where you're doing that, okay, that can be 1 day during the week. The next week you're doing something hard, you want to vary and alternate that stressor. So the other stressors that we can use is, to simplify, I'll just say something medium. Instead of 30-ish minutes to an hour pace, a pace you could sustain for 30-ish to maybe 15-ish minutes, okay? In our parlance, 10K to 5K pace for trained runners. But what we're looking for is medium length intervals or shorter intervals with short rest at kind of fast paces, but not that fast. So 400s at 10K to 5K pace, 300s at 10K to 5K pace, 600s maybe even 800s if you build up to it. And then the last of the three kind of ingredients, again, simplified, it is what I call short, fast, not that fatiguing. So 200s at 5K to mile pace, or a pace you could go from 15 minutes down to about 4 minutes in length that you could hold. Run that pace for about 200 or 150 or 100 meters or 30 seconds or 15 seconds. And the key here is, unlike a track athlete getting ready for the mile, where we often use these as tolerance, meaning we're going to go until we feel the burn, you don't need to do that when you're training for health. We want to stop well short of that. We're just looking at fast and smooth to kind of get some of the neural benefits of it. And we can even change these to including things like hills, or even longer hill runs, or even shorter hill sprints, which I've covered before. Something shorter and fast, but not highly fatiguing. And when it comes to fitness, all you're going to do is essentially cycle through these. Now, you don't have to go short, medium, long, or long, medium, short, depending on what you want to emphasize. And because you're caring about general fitness, it doesn't matter too much as long as we're including some of these at some point. Okay? So think of it like this. Most days easy, if we're going 4 days a week or 5 days a week. 3 to 4 days easy. Okay? 1 day hard, cycle your hard. The other point on hard is that we want to alter the stimulus over time and progressively load it. Meaning, don't just keep doing 4x4 minutes every week. If you're doing that, you're an idiot. Sorry, health influencers. It's just the 1920s called and they want their training program back. We need to alternate. So we could get faster. We could alternate the reps. We could alter the rest. We could play with all sorts of things. We could change where it's done, hill, track, environment, whatever you want to do. But we want to change the training load so that we keep adapting. In which way you change it, whether it's speed, recovery, rep length, that alters a little bit how your body is adapting. So think of it. Am I trying to endure this quality, meaning getting better at lasting at this, or, adding some more speed to it, so I'm getting faster and able to maintain it, or, recovery, being able to recover faster. It doesn't matter too much during health, that's more race specific, performance specific. But the point is, we want to be able to alter the stimulus. Now, I've said 1 day a week. You can build up to 2 days a week once you've had enough of this if you want. Do I think it's necessary for health? Probably not. I'm going to be honest. But if you think you need a new stimulus and you haven't got the bug to perform at anything, adding 2 days a week isn't going to be that big of a deal. Okay. You just want to introduce where at first it's one kind of hard and one kind of medium, and gradually bring it in. And you generally, for health reasons, want those going in different directions. So long and short, or medium and long, whatever have you. The one thing that I haven't talked about is what's included in every runner's training and Ben Levine's, which is a longer run. So I think here depends on what your other easy days look like. Okay. If you built up to where you're doing 4 days of 45 to 60 minutes and you've got one interval day as well, do you need a long run? Maybe. It'll help a little bit, but it's not a huge deal. Now, if those other runs are only 30 to 40 minutes, you probably need a long run to boost that general aerobic stimulus. So having that once every week, or probably in health reasons once every 2 weeks, is totally fine. How long should your long run be? Again, depends on what you're looking at for health reasons. I think anything from 60 to 90 minutes is perfectly okay if your goal is general fitness. If you don't want to do that, or if you want to supplement that with some cross training or a run plus cross training, meaning 60-minute run plus 30, 45-minute bike, totally fine as well. You will get some benefits from going longer because you're going to recruit more muscle fibers into it that have been fatigued. You're going to press your fuel utilization system a little bit because we'll dive deeper into glycogen depletion a little bit when we lengthen out the endurance. Is it necessary when you're not training for some race? Probably not, but it does give us a nice kind of a boost for general aerobic fitness. So again, where would I include that? After you've added some intensity into the session, we might add some long runs as well, or a long run every 2 weeks or 1 week that's lengthening out. Especially if you do 2 harder sessions per week, you probably need to counterbalance it with either more easy runs or more long runs, because it's like a seesaw between speed and endurance, or intensity and aerobic side, and it's just a balance of things. So there you go. That's a very basic program. The keys, though, are you want it mostly aerobic, okay? A little bit of intensity. The intensity is the icing on the cake. It is what boosts your ability to express that fitness that you've developed. You do that, do it progressively and consistently, and that's what it's all about. And the most important point, especially for a novice or amateur who's doing this for health reasons or maybe to bridge the gap to get back into racing, is you want it to be something relatively enjoyable that you sustain, that is sustainable. This is why I think often the guidelines to say, you know what, if you're time crunched, go do 3-4 interval workouts a week, is really bad advice. Because if someone told me to do 4 hard days a week, and I'm a dedicated runner, I would be like, nah, man, that sucks. Like, unless that's giving me a huge performance benefit. But if you're just telling me that to stay fit, I'm gonna have a hard time finding the motivation and energy to say, okay, let's go hard again today. Because going hard, even if it's moderately hard, like in these examples, takes some willpower. It takes some energy. It's hard to do when you have other life stressors. Getting out the door for a 30-minute easy run when you can have conversations with your friends, or even if you want, listen to music or podcasts, stay engaged, that's not as difficult if it's become part of your routine. So find something that you enjoy and that is part of your routine and that you can do for a long, long time, because it's not doing it for weeks or months. It's for years that matters from a health standpoint.